Alright, here's a chart that we're going to study the Drekkana. To start with, we're sort of just going to follow this handout here so that we make sure we cover everything for this first chart. Okay? So the first thing is the Drekkana deities. It's always a fun place to start. By right-clicking on the 3 on the Drekkana chart, we'll pull up a table that has all the dignities and the deities on the right here. So you can see in this person's chart that they've got 3 planets in the Lagna in Narada Drekkana. We've got Sun and Saturn, 2 planets in Agastya Drekkana, and then 2 planets, Mars and Venus and Durvasha Drekkana. So they mostly have Narada Drekkana. Also Rahu and Ketu are in Narada Drekkana. So that shows this person's life is going to have a lot of the new stuff going on. Lots of new things in their life. That will make life different than what they're used to growing up usually. And in fact, this person is, out of all their family, is the person who moved to a new place, who moved away from home. The rest of the family members are still in their, not their immediate neighborhood, but in the area that they grew up in. So Narada Drekkana is always about new experiences. And so this person has had more new experiences than their siblings and so on, because they do have an unusual amount of Narada Drekkanas happening. Now, one thing, Rahu and Ketu aren't that important for their deities, aren't as important, but they're always going to be in the same. So if Rahu's in Narada Drekkana, Ketu will also be in Narada Drekkana. Okay? Now, one thing that's interesting, one place I always like to start is looking at the Durvasa Drekkanas. Why? Because Durvasa Drekkanas are the things that are going to be coming to some terminations and endings. Durvasa Drekkanas are the last third of the Rashi, right? The last Drekkana. So it's the finalizing, completing Drekkana. Narada Drekkanas are the first Drekkana of a Rashi. So they're the initiative, creative, beginning phase of a Rashi. And then the last phase is the Durvasa one, which almost indicates some element of destruction, termination, endings, or real radical changes. And more often than not, planets in the Durvasa Drekkanas are going to be the things that people are having issues with or difficulties or coming to the astrologer for, because those are the things that are going to be more often falling apart than other things, okay, or cause them to question their hopes and desires, more so than planets in other Drekkanas. So from a counseling point of view, working with clients, Durvasa Drekkanas are the place to begin. So this person has Mars and Venus both in these Durvasa Drekkanas. Now, Venus is the karaka of relationships and marriage, and Mars in this person's chart happens to rule the 7th bhava in the Rashi. It also rules the 7th bhava cusp in the Drekkana. So both of the relationship-centered planets are in Durvasa Drekkanas. So right away we know where this person's going to have really unexpected surprises where things can possibly fall apart is going to be in the area of relationships. Okay, that's the area where she's completing things, which results in possible terminations or really big adjustments or changes. Okay, so that's been true in this person's life where they're very much in love with somebody that they've known for several years, high school boyfriend, typical, stereotypical American relationship, except one day he got up and moved to another country and decided he just didn't want to be with her anymore. So, just radical termination. Now, the Durvasa Drekkanas aren't solely responsible for that. There also obviously has to be afflictions in the Navamsha and in the Saptamsha, in the relationship-centered Vargas. But the fact that these 2 important relationship planets are there shows us that big unexpected elements of destruction will come into place in relationships, which will have the result of really changing who she is and what's important to her, because that's what Durvasa Drekkanas are all about. They're about creating those big transformations. um, you know, breaking us free from things that just aren't going to work. So the ideologies she had in respect to relationships, well, in this lifetime, Durvasa was terminating those and breaking those down. And it did it pretty radically because of afflictions. So it's not always going to be that case, but there'll always be this sort of element when planets are in these Durvasa Drekkanas. So the thing that's going to be causing this person to question her existence more, which is what Durvasa Drekkanas do, are going to be relationship things. Okay? Narada Drekkanas don't cause us to question our existence. They make us feel like there's something for us to do. Because remember, Narada Drekkanas always think there's something to do. So they make us feel like there's reason and meaning for our existence. But Durvasa Drekkanas do the very opposite. They make us question our existence. And Agastya Drekkanas, which are the middle Drekkanas, they help us find security in our existence. Okay? Rest and recuperation and security. So they're sort of that settled, stable ground that we can use to survive the difficulties of the Durvasa Drekkanas, and which provide the foundation to do the new things and the exciting things indicated by the Narada Drekkanas. Okay? So let's look at these two Durvasa planets now. Mars is one of the important ones, and of course Mars is the most important planet in the Drekkana to begin with. Mars is all alone in the Rashi chart, so he has no conjunctions to him. He's aspected by Venus to 13 points, who's a natural neutral, and Saturn to 38 points, who's a natural neutral. And Mars is in a natural neutral sign. So Mars does not have any good Lajitati Avashtas, nor any bad Lajitati Avashtas. He's just neutral. He's completely neutral. Now, when a planet's in a neutral's dignity and doesn't have any Lajitati influences upon it, he's called, the Avashta of that planet, the Diptati Avashta, a different type, is scarce. So a planet that doesn't have anything hurting it, but which doesn't have anything helping it, just barely gets a line. He's scarce. Kind of like in nature, how animals survive. They just barely get enough to survive. They're always hungry, but nature creates as many species and animals out there as can just barely survive with the amount of food available. So the animals are always hungry, but they still just get by. And that's what this Mars is like. It's scarce. It has just enough to survive, but doesn't have enough to ever feel completely fulfilled and happy. That's the results of a planet in a neutral dignity. Okay, now, I kind of said too much there. Keep that in mind when you see planets in neutral dignity. Mars is in a natural neutral sign, but fortunately, his dignity is a friend because Venus is a temp friend. So that helps Mars at least have a friendly dignity and be productive in that chart. But he's not influenced by any friends. He doesn't have any good Lajitati Avashtas, so he's a very weak, good influence. But he's a good planet at least, okay? So, we don't see too many afflictions to that Mars. Let's look at Venus. Venus is all alone in the Rashi chart. No conjunctions to it. Aspects. He has the Sun aspecting the 3 points. And the Sun is going to hurt him a bit because Sun is strong, but it's such a weak aspect, it'll be minimal. Moon and enemy aspects to 31 points. The Moon is in a natural neutral sign, so he can hurt the Sun to some degree. Mars is a neutral to Venus. Mercury is a friend, so he's going to help, but only a little bit to 8 points. Jupiter is neutral. So Venus has more afflictions on him, mostly due to this Moon, by enemies. However, Venus is in a natural friend sign. But his natural friend, unfortunately, is Saturn, and Saturn's the one planet in the Drekkana that's sleeping in a natural enemy sign. So Venus is not going to get really any help from his friend Saturn, even though he's in Saturn's sign. So this Venus is just a little bit less than average. It's a little bit starved, mostly by this Moon. Okay? Moon aspecting Venus ends up starving Venus because Venus has unrealistic expectations, and therefore those expectations aren't fulfilled, and Venus isn't going to be happy. So while Mars is a little better than average, just barely, Venus is a bit worse than average. So these two planets are sort of in mediocre condition, okay? Um, but still, this person's, the Durvasa Nakshatras, ruled and tore up their relationship life. What are some possible reasons for that? Well, one reason is the seventh lord in the Rashi is in the fifth, in an enemy dignity. And remember what we said about the seventh lord in the fifth? It can terminate your relationship. It's one of those, if you go to the seventh house yogas, you'll learn that yoga. Seventh lord and fifth can, is bad for marriages and relationships. And that's a big part of the problem right there. Okay? Then, so there are other afflictions to that Mars. But in the Drekkana, they're decent. Okay? But still, they are going to have that Durvasa quality of relationships being what breaks them down into new ways of thinking. Okay? So I always like to start there, and then what we should do, what we're not going to take the time to do it now, we should look at the seventh lord in the Navamsha. Well, let's do that. Venus, the seventh lord in the Navamsha, is sleeping in Cancer. Okay? It's aspected by the moon, who's hurting it. It has more friends aspecting it. So in the Navamsha, Venus is very starved, and Venus is also the Karaka of marriage. So you see how there's indications for a relationship to fail right away. Anyway, and the purpose behind that is the Durvasa Nakshatra, or Durvasa Drekkana, of breaking down their ways of thinking, breaking down their belief systems, breaking down what they think is going to be secure. And it's going to be more traumatic when it's in a Durvasa Drekkana. Had Venus been in a, Narada Drekkana, and, they still would have had a relationship terminate because Venus is in bad shape in the Navamsha, then that termination would have caused them to think of the new possibilities and new type of relationships that will work better for them. But for this person, that happening was like a detrimental thing in their life, really a destructive thing, from which they really never completely recovered into thinking they could ever be in love again like that. Had Venus been in a Narada Drekkana, they would have been able to move on and still think, okay, I could still have a new kind of love that's maybe even better. Or if Venus had been in an Agastya Drekkana, they would have been able to, realize, okay, this one ended, but still life works out. Love does work out. I just got to try again. But no, it was a Durvasa Drekkana. So it really broke down all their ideas and ideals about marriages and relationships completely, and to a point where they never felt like they could really fall in love again, like they had been with that first person. So that's sort of the difference between these Durvasa and Drekkanas. They're definitely going to create a greater intensity and a huge inner shift, and usually one that's a breaking away from things as compared to other Drekkanas. Okay? So anything you see in a Durvasa Drekkana, look at that planet in the appropriate Vargas. Okay? Now, the very fact that they've got Mars, the most important planet in the Drekkana, in a Durvasa Drekkana, lets us know that their modes of thinking will be something that's constantly broken down. Their opinions and ideas about things, which are basically, those things in our mind, that in our conscious, that we exert and put out there. Those are our opinions and ideas about things that we have a strong mindset about. Those things are going to be challenged and broken down because of being in that Durvasa Drekkana. Okay? So this person can have really strong ideas about something, but events in life will break those ideas down and cause her to not have a security revolving around those ideas. And a lot of those revolve around 7th house things, relationship things, and 2nd house things, which are financial and family matters. And that's been very true in this person's life. Okay? Okay. Okay, so those are the best, always focus on those Drekkanas first, those Durvasa Drekkanas first, okay? Now, we can also see what type of things are going to be, new things that they'll do that are going to be strong new things that they're committed to. For that, we can look at the Narada Drekkana is, and simply find the strongest planet in a Narada Drekkana. Well, the moons in a Narada Drekkana, Mercury and Jupiter, are also in Narada Drekkana. Moon, Mercury, and Jupiter. Jupiter is in a great friend sign, but he's not in good shape at all. He's starved by Mercury, being conjunct here, and he's agitated by the Sun. So Jupiter is really not a very good planet. And he's aspected by his friend Mars, only helps a little bit, and by neutral Saturn, who's not doing anything. But he's agitated by Sun and starved by Mercury. So this Jupiter's not a great Jupiter, unfortunately. So they won't have a lot of new great things with Jupiter. Okay? One thing Jupiter represents is yoga philosophy and philosophy in general. Here it rules the third house of exercise and the sixth house of health and overcoming disease. And this person actually in their Jupiter dasha got into yoga and, entertained the idea of becoming a yoga teacher and went to a place and started working at a yoga studio and practicing there and stuff. But they never finished it. They weren't dedicated to it at all. Why? Because Jupiter's starved by Mercury and the Sun. It's starved by Mercury, agitated by the Sun. So that Jupiter was not going to, even though it let them have this new experience of this yoga world, and this is someone from a small little hick town who moves out to California to do the yoga thing, who experiences this new thing because it's a Narada Drekkana for a while, but doesn't really do anything with it because Jupiter's starved. Okay? So Jupiter's not going to indicate any great new things in their existence. Maybe Mercury will. Mercury is agitated by the Sun. He's in a neutral sign, and he's delighted by Jupiter's conjunction. So Mercury has more potential, but he's not perfect. Let's see what else is in the Narada Drekkana. Jupiter, Mercury, and Moon. Let's check out Moon. Moon doesn't have any conjunctions to it. He's in a natural neutral sign. Moon is influenced by Venus, natural neutrals, and Saturn, a natural neutral. So Venus is just mediocre, Moon is mediocre too. Mercury is mediocre, Jupiter's bad. We don't have a great planet in a Durvasa Nakshatra, okay? Or a Durvasa, we don't have a great planet, meaning a really strongly mudita, delighted, good Lajitadi Avashta planet in a Narada Drekkana. So this person's not going to have anything wonderfully new in their life. That's going to be a big new part of their existence. They'll have new yoga, but it'll fail. They'll have new philosophical things, but they'll fail because Jupiter's starved. They'll have new moon things. Moon rules the 10th in the Rashi, 10th in the Drekkana. So they'll do new jobs that they never expected they would do, new types of careers, but none of them are going to be this wonderful, really great thing. Okay? They'll be an average thing, but they'll be new. Then the other planet that was in the Narada Drekkana was Mercury. Mercury rules the 9th house, again, house of philosophy, parenting, and 12th house, expenses and vacations. And Mercury's helped by Jupiter, hurt by Sun, it's mediocre. So some of those things will be enjoyable and delightful, and she'll go to lots of new places. With, Mercury in the 9th house, she'll experience lots of new ideas and ideals and philosophies and cultures, but she's never going to fully gravitate to clinging to one of them in a great way, okay? Simply because of the fact that Mercury is just mediocre. It's helped by Jupiter, but hurt by Sun. And the Sun's really strong to agitate it, because Sun's in Leo. It's a strong Sun, so it's really agitating that Mercury. Okay, Mercury's combust too, and he's in the 7th house where he doesn't have Digbala. And that's 2 strikes about making Mercury weak. And then he's really close to his debilitation in Pisces. So Mercury's just not a good planet. And, if you know astrology, the minute you meet this person, like when they walked into my office many, many years ago for the first time, like instantly just the way they handled a piece of paper, it was easy for me to see that they had a really weak Mercury, okay? And their Mercury is weak. So nothing greatly new in this person's chart, okay? And we've seen the things that are going to be terminated in our life, that'll the Durvasa Drekkana things, the things that are going to be ended and which can possibly leave, are just going to be of average things anyway, because Venus and Mars we've seen are sort of average. Now let's go to the Agastya one. Sun and Saturn are in Agastya Nakshatra. So these will be the stable things, the things that she can find security with, the things that are easier to commit to, that will be just more stable factors in their life. The Sun is great. It's in its own sign. It's helped by its friend Jupiter by being conjunct Jupiter. It's conjunct Mercury, who's a neutral, so Mercury won't hurt it. Sun's aspected by friend Moon and friend Mars. Great. Lots of mudita and delight on that Lajitadiya Vashta of the Sun. It's hammered by Saturn to 50 points, but Saturn's sleeping in the Drekkana. So it can't hurt Sun in the Drekkana. So the Sun is totally mudita in the Drekkana. It's a great Sun. So one thing they can always count on is their 11th house and Sun. Well, Sun is the father, and this person is adored by her father. Her father deeply cares about her, totally takes care of her. When she came to my office, at first she was young, I would say early 20s, and she was driving a $30,000 pickup. And that was, 10 years ago, where that pickup now would cost $40,000 or something. So, that just a pickup her dad bought her because he wanted her to have a good, solid, reliable car. So her dad was always like that for her, always really supportive. Just a really great dad, when she found really great security in, an unnatural amount of security. One of the issues she had at the time was her father had some high cholesterol that she was super concerned about. But with that Sun, in Agastya Nakshatra, that right away lets us know that her father will probably be around for a long time, be a real stable factor. And he is. Then the 11th house, which is her older sister, which she has an older sister, has been a real stable, solid factor in her life. And both those things have been unusually stable, solid, totally things that she can completely depend upon in every situation, due to the fact that the Sun is just so perfect in the Drekkana. And it's completely medita, no bad influences to it at all. Okay? So she's really lucky in that area, and that's really the best security elements she has in her life. Okay? Then Saturn is in a bad shape. Okay, Saturn's in a natural enemy sign. It's the only planet in a natural enemy sign, so it's starved. Saturn's influenced by enemy Sun to 40 points, enemy Moon, enemy Mars. Then it's helped by Mercury and Venus. But the amount of help that Mercury and Venus gives, 42 for Mercury and 10 for Venus, 52 total, is not as much as 65, 80 of Sun, Moon, and Mars, and the fact that it gets hurt by Mars by being in Mars' sign again. So Saturn is much more starved. It's like 2/3 starved, 1/3 delight. So Saturn can represent stable things in their life that they have a lot of difficulty with. Okay? Things that create an element of security. Security just means you can count on it. It doesn't mean it's really wonderful, though, right? And, that can offer some difficulties. What does Saturn represent? Well, in the Rashi, Saturn rules the 4th house, which is the mother, and the 5th house, children. Mother and children. Here, the 4th and 5th house, mother and children. Okay? While her mother was a real stable factor, again, an Agastya factor in her life, her and her mother oftentimes got in trouble with each other and had frictions. Okay, it wasn't as enjoyable as a security. They always knew they could depend on each other. That Agastya Nakshatra was there, but not in this totally loving, cherishing way like she got from the father and the older sister. In a much more conditional way, in a way that had a lot more manipulation involved. And then also, this girl has been burdened by having to raise another person's child, which they didn't have wonderful feelings with this child, not like they loved this child, but there was just this factor they had to sort of deal with in their life. So again, it gave them stability and consistency that they had to do something, in their life. That was a stable thing, but not something that brought all that much delight, something that was more an element of difficulty. Okay, so we can see the best new things, the worst new things, the best security things, the worst security things, and the best things that somehow shift them or change their paradigm, the Durvasa Nakshatras, or the worst things that do that. And it's always nice to find those extreme planets. It's always nice to look at the best Narada Drekkana, because when people come into an astrologer's world, they usually want to know about the greatest, newest thing in their life, right? That's something we want to know. What's something that's going to be really new, something unexpected that I can really run with that will really work for me? Well, look towards that Narada Drekkana and try to find a really good Drekkana lord or planet in the Drekkana that's a great planet and good in a Narada Drekkana, and that'll be it. Okay? Alright, so there are some ideas how we can use these Drekkana lords. Alright, we already mentioned the most important planet in this Varga is Mars. Okay, Mars is how we actually exert what's in our consciousness. It's the strength of mind that we use to exert what's in our consciousness. We've seen this person's Mars is so-so. It's average. Okay, so they're not going to be forcefully opinionated in a negative way. They're not going to be unusually stubborn. They're not going to be unusually pushy. They're just going to be really average in that. That's very true for this person. They're very average in how they do that. Okay? Now, the Baba. The third Baba is the most important Baba. It represents the people, our associates in our life, the quality of the associates, and whether we have good or bad associates. That's the main thing in that the third represents there. The third Baba is Sagittarius, ruled by Jupiter. First, let's look at the third Baba. The third Baba is influenced by Sun, who's in its own sign, so helping, by the Moon, who's in, let's pull up the Moon's dignity, in a friend's dignity. So the Moon is going to help the third, just to 15 points though. By Mars, who's in a friend's sign in a good dignity, and so helping the third. By Mercury, who's in a friend's dignity and helping the 30 points. By Jupiter, who's in a great friend sign, and also the Lord, who's really going to help. By Venus, who's in a great friend sign, and also going to help. So 6 planets are helping. 6 planets are helping. Venus helps to 53 actually. 6 planets are helping. Saturn's in a great enemy sign, so he's going to hurt the third, but only 5 points. So this person just has like the most amazing third Baba. It's pretty much perfect. It's aspected by all the planets. The strongest aspect is by its Lord. The weakest aspect is from a bad planet, but it's so weak it's not going to make much difference. So this person gets great associates, great siblings. They have wonderful siblings. Both younger and elder siblings are great for this person as far as, good people. When they go to a new work or a new job, they easily meet associates. They get along with their co-workers and so on. They make friends easily with their workers. They get invited to parties by people at work. And everything falls into nice. They really have nice associates, okay, as we'd expect from that great third Baba. Now, the third Lord, though, by contrast, is really interesting. It's probably one of the worst planets in the Drekkana. While it's in a friend sign, it's starred by Mercury and agitated by the Sun. It's Jupiter. So, the Lord, while the Baba represents the thing more, the Lord is more the consciousness with which we approach that Baba. Because the Babas are the unconscious things. They're the thing. The Lord of the Baba is the consciousness that we deal with that thing. So Jupiter is the wisdom, compassion, and understanding that they would deal with their associates. Okay? Because it's the Lord of the third. And Jupiter is agitated and starved. So even though this person has great associates, they deal with them oftentimes from a more starved perspective and a more agitated perspective, which ends up hurting their relationships and shows they don't use their associates and benefit from their associates and give to their associates and communicate with their associates and understand their associates to the degree that their associates are, let's say, capable of. Okay, because that lore becomes a limiting factor, because they get agitated with their associates easily because it's joined the sun, and they often feel starved that they're not getting treated fairly by their associates. So that Lord is sort of, unfortunately, not allowing them to take the best advantage of their associates. Okay? So we see a big contrast between the Baba and Lord there. Ultimately, it's the consciousness we approach something that determines our happiness with something. And so even though this person is always going to have great associates around them, the Lajitadiya Vashta of the Lord shows the level of happiness and fulfillment that's there, and it's going to be starved and agitated more. So they're not going to get a whole bunch of happiness from, even though they always have associates handy. Okay, and even though their siblings are always there for them. Okay? And that's particularly younger siblings. Okay, then, the next important Baba is the sixth Baba. It shows the enmity that can come up as a result of associating badly, or the ability for two people or teammates or the associates to work together to overcome obstacles and problems and danger, and to therefore improve the quality of life. The Jupiter, as we've seen, is the sixth Baba Lord. So again, that is not really approached well. Let's look at the sixth Baba. Sixth Baba has the moon in it. The moon's in a friend sign, so it's helping. Sixth Baba is aspected by Venus, who's helping to 9 points, but then hurt by Saturn to 33 points, because Saturn's the planet in the Drekkana that's in a great enemy sign, and therefore hurting everything. But at least it has the moon there in the sixth. Okay? So the moon is going to help more than Saturn's going to hurt, because it's a full conjunction to the sixth Baba. And again, that conjunction is we're taken in the Rashi. Moon is in the same Rashi as the sixth Baba cusp. So it's a better than worse sixth Baba. Okay, so they have the possibilities, the strength, the will, the energy to overcome difficulties with associates, to improve upon things with the help of associates and siblings and so on. How good will they do that, though? Well, Jupiter's, again, bad. Okay? So they're not getting all the meat out of the third and sixth Babas as they could. Okay? Things will be productive. Things will work out. They got good Babas. They'll have the associate that they need to get the job done. But they're always going to feel a little agitated by it all, and starved and not fulfilled. So they won't have fulfillment with their associates. They won't have fulfillment in overcoming things with their associates and improving life with their associates. It still won't be fulfilling, even though they'll be able in many respects to do it. Okay? Then the other Baba that's important in the Drekkana is the ninth Baba. The ninth Baba has K2 in it. It's aspected by the ninth Baba by Sun in good dignity, Moon in good dignity, Mars in good dignity, Mercury and Jupiter. Good. It's only influenced by planets in good dignity. It's a perfect ninth Baba. So that lets us know right away the parental influence was really great. The results of her having siblings and associating with their siblings and what that brought out of the parents was a lot of great, loving, nurturing care. And that's very true. This person really, all in all, feels blessed with the parenting that they had. Okay? The Lord of the Ninth, Mercury, is also one of the better planets. It is starred by the Sun, but then it's helped by Jupiter. It's by being conjunct Jupiter. And it's not one of the better, but it's average. It's okay. So they're able to take more advantage of that and find fulfillment in that more so than the third and sixth Baba. Okay. Also, the ninth house in the Drekkana has to do with the purpose that we can achieve through the help of associates and through the help of siblings and so on, by doing the work with them, by working with our teammates and improving our abilities for productivity by having teammates and associates. So they're aware of that purpose. Mercury makes them aware of that. They're able to succeed in that purpose because the ninth Baba is so good. But they'll be a little agitated in the process because that sun is sort of doing that. And, the sun, when it's strong, it's agitating things more, right? When it's debilitated, it's not. Because the sun is the king. And the king always expects things to work in accord with his commandments. So, the more commanding the sun is, the more room there is for agitation, because things just don't work that way. Okay? So when the sun is commanding Mercury and Jupiter, it's because they're just not falling into place the way the sun wants them to. Okay? And so there's an element of always power tripping whenever the sun gets really strong, because it just naturally expects things to happen the way it wants to. Okay? And the sun is one of the planets that in lots of ways works best by itself. When it's conjunct other planets, it therefore gets agitated because it's dealing with, mere mortals, let's say. It's dealing with weaker people, less able people. And so the sun gets more agitated by that when it's easier just to do by itself. Sun is one of those loner planets. It's a independent planet in the sense that it does work best alone, as do most malefics, except for Mars. Mars rules our teammates, rules our siblings. So Mars is the one malefic that's very capable of working with other people. The sun is not capable of working with others. It's capable of having others work for them, but it's not capable of working with others. So when it gets over familiar with other planets, like it's joined with Mercury and Jupiter here, then the sun agitates those planets. Okay, and those planets aren't real comfortable. Okay, so those are the bhavas there. Alright, this person is a Libra, first Drekkana. The first Drekkana of Libra, this is a benefic Drekkana, first of all. On the handout, you'll see the type of Drekkana, Pakshi, Vulture-Face, Mix, Benefic, whatever. That's always nice to read. Right away we know the first Drekkana of Libra is a benefic Drekkana. So that means this person's going to behave nicely, act sweetly. Very, very true of this person. This person comes off as being a totally nice person. If a stranger comes up to them to ask them something, they act like their best friend, really kind, really sweet. Okay? So a really likable person because it is a benefic Drekkana. Of course, as you get to know the person, you start seeing their issues and stuff. But they're sincerely try to put themselves out in a very nice way because it's a benefic Drekkana. The first Drekkana of Libra represents a man seated in the shop in the middle of the road, holding balances, clever in weight and measuring with a small scale for weighing gold, diamonds, and thinking of his capital and the prices of the articles in his shop. So a mercantile way of thinking, total Libra, meaning if I'm going to have this, it's going to have to reward me a certain way. It's going to have to be worth it for me to do it. That's the quality of Libra, always weighing things in their life. And this person is very much like that. They aren't one to waste their time on things or people that they don't think will be worthy, productive people in their life, but they'll go about it in a very nice way. Okay, so they don't want to fall into debt in their life. They want to have a productive life when the first Drekkana of Libra is rising. That's very true about this person. And thinking of his capital and the prices of the articles in the shop. I've noticed that people who have the first Drekkana of Libra are very much into like organizing their money. So if you get their wallet and you open it up, you'll see all the bills are organized with the heads pointed in the right direction, with the hundreds on the bottom, the 50s on top of the hundreds, and then the 20s, the 10s, and the 1s. They're not just going to have their wallet stacked full of money and all crumpled up. They're usually more thinking about their capital and their wealth and paying attention to that. And that was very true with this person. I remember when they paid me, I just noticed their wallet was like totally aligned. The cash in their, their little purse inside the purse where they held their cash was very neat, unusually neat. So you'll see that being a sort of a quality with that image. Okay, and ultimately, a lot of the important decisions this person made had to do with what financially would be most sensible for them to do. Okay, that's the quality of the first Drekkana of Libra. Okay, it's a benefic Drekkana, nice and easy. It's not complicated. It's just a benefic Drekkana. It's a nice Drekkana. It wants to treat others fairly. It wants to be treated fairly. But it wants to be progressive, which is the quality of Libra, which is okay because it's normal. It's healthy to want to progress in life, okay? As long as we don't do it in a way that harms others. And the first Drekkana of Libra does it in that way. It doesn't hurt others. It works towards its own progress, but not in a way that's harmful. Okay, Moon's Drekkana. The Moon is in a friend's Drekkana, right? If the Moon is in his own friendly Drekkana, the person will be handsome and virtuous. Okay, that's true for this person. They always try to behave well towards other people. They're an attractive person as well. And the reason they're attractive, because when you associate with them, they're attempting to be nice and smiley. And even if they're unhappy, they're not going to dump bad moods on the person. And that, so handsome is as in a quality is what this Drekkana gives. It doesn't just mean they're automatically going to be a pretty person. It's in their behavior and their facial expressions and so on. Then this says the person will get the characteristics of the Lord of the Drekkana if it's in an evil Drekkana or a bad Drekkana. But like I said, they'll always get that Drekkana Lord to some degree in their nature, which is Jupiter. Okay? What's the nature of Jupiter? Sweet. Okay? When you meet this person, you'll think, oh, they're just really sweet because their moon's in the Drekkana of Jupiter. So that accentuates their sweetness. Jupiter's compassionate. Jupiter's forgiving. So these are all sort of qualities that this person has because the moon being in that Drekkana. Okay? Okay, pretty simple. And the moon we saw is in a natural neutral sign. So his Lajitadivasa is just so-so. He's influenced by just neutral. So the moon's in a friend's dignity, but his Lajitadivasa is just totally neutral. Nothing good, nothing bad. Okay? So they'll have those qualities just to an average degree. So their sweetness has a limit. How much of a limit? An average limit. They don't have the moon influenced by lots of friends and by Jupiter and stuff, conjunct Jupiter or anything like that, which would make the person's sweetness last forever no matter what somebody does to them. This person, they're sweet, they're kind, they're compassionate, they have those Jupiter qualities, they're forgiving. But if somebody mistreats them, they're not going to have any kindness for that person anymore, okay, which is a normal thing. They're not going to have an abundance of kindness and compassion. They're going to have an average amount, but it'll be a marked quality for them. If the Lord of the Drekkana of the Lagna be strong, the person will achieve the status like that of a king. Well, that's Venus. Venus, we've seen, is in a great friends, or a natural friend sign, so it should get some Lajita, good Lajitadivashta there, some good delight from Saturn. But since his Lord Saturn is sleeping, by being in a natural enemy sign, it doesn't really get any from there. Then Venus is aspected by friend Mercury, but then hurt by enemy Sun and Moon. So Venus is sort of mediocre. It's not strong. So no, they're not a king. They don't have this great will and this great powerful personality to make things happen the way they think they should. No, they don't have that kind of power. Venus is just so-so. Okay? In a dual sign, the three Drekkanates in the order will be Adama bad, Madhya average, and Uttama. Okay, this is the thing where, depending on the Rashi, the Drekkana's are good, bad, or even. In a movable Rashi like Libra, the first Drekkana is the good one, the best one. It brings out the best possibilities of Libra. Then the last Drekkana of Libra brings out the worst possibilities of Libra, and the middle Drekkana of Libra brings out average possibilities of Libra. So this one fortunately has their Lagna in the first Drekkana of Libra, which can bring out the best possibilities of Libra. Okay, and make their life a little more smooth and harmonious. Okay, had Venus been stronger in the Drekkana, had that Drekkana Lagna Lord been stronger, it would have been more so than it is. Okay, because they can't take full advantage of that because it's not an totally awesome planet. Okay. Well, they don't have a rising Drekkana that's serpent or fetter, so no worries there. Aries Drekkana, let's go to the Libra Drekkana. One born in the first Drekkana of Libra is dark-skinned and looks like Cupid. Clever and intelligent, he is wise in the ways of fine arts and merchandise, and well-versed in mantras, magic spells. He's a jester who engages in service and wandering. Then according to Sarabelli, one will be akin to Cupid in physical charm, be skillful, will enjoy travels, be dark in complexion, fond of arts and business, will fulfill appointed tasks, and be very learned. Okay, so they look like Cupid. They're an attractive, beautiful person. And one will be akin to Cupid, well, that means they're just not attractive, but they're actually attractive in a very magnetic way, where you want to be with them type way. So first Drekkana of Libra will have that more than others, that sort of physical attraction ability. That's true of this person. It's true of most Libra first Drekkana people to some degree. Okay, they have more physical charm like Cupid. It's not true of this person. Enjoys travels. Yes, the person drives a lot. Okay, they travel all over the place. They'll drive 400 miles to do something at a whim. It's not a big deal for them. It doesn't even take any planning. They'll just jump in their truck and go. So wandering and traveling is there. Okay. Are they dark-skinned? They're not dark-skinned. They're actually light-skinned. Okay. Interesting enough, however, in this person's distant ancestry, they do have some Northern African blood in their distant ancestry. Okay, however, they are completely fair-skinned. So those things you can't really pay attention with because those are more like racial things. And the Drekkana, of course, is not going to really show what race you have. Okay, clever and intelligent, that's true. Wise in the ways of fine arts and merchandise, yes, very good shopper, very capable shopper. A lot of these qualities are there. Well-versed in magic spells, that was a little weak part for this person, really not so much of that. Mantras, those have a lot to do with Jupiter, and we've seen Jupiter's not great in the Drekkana, so we don't see so much of that coming into this person's life. Okay? Jester, not unusually so, but things that are very true to this is Cupid appearance, clever and intelligence, wise in the way of merchandise, and has a lot to do with wandering and traveling. Those things are very key to this person's life. So again, these Drekkana descriptions will never be perfect, but you'll see 60-70% of it usually aligning up with the person. Okay? Which is pretty good for just a cookie book recipe of something. Just a real simple one-factor analysis of a chart. Okay? Alright, so now we get a little bit of a feel from that person based on their Moon's Drekkana, the Lagna's Drekkana, and the Drekkana image of the Lagna. We can get a sort of a good feel for the person. And, so far you feel like, geez, this person would be a likable person. And that's true. A person that in lots of ways would be nice to know. But a person who, unfortunately, due to the Baba Lords, the third and sixth Baba Lord in the Drekkana, two of the important Baba Lords, was only going to have so much fulfillment with their associates. So even if this person knows you and they're likable and they're nice and you do things with them, they're not going to be completely fulfilled with knowing you and the things they do with you, because they just don't have that level of fulfillment possible because Jupiter is in such bad shape in the Drekkana. Okay, the 22nd Drekkana is the perishable Drekkana. So let's find out what that is. The 22nd Drekkana is the first Drekkana of Taurus, which is ruled by Venus. So Venus is the 22nd Drekkana Lord. If that Venus is in the 6th, 7th, or 8th house and weak, it can cause destruction in its dasha, right? That's that one rule we learned about that. Well, it's in the 8th, but it's in its own sign, so it's solid. Okay? Now, that Venus, if it's indicating health problems in other Vargas, like in the Trim Samsha, Venus is debilitated, so it's not great for health. That lets us know Venus can cause more serious disorders because it rules that 22nd Drekkana. Okay, even though it's good in the Rashi chart, it still can cause some greater problems, all other factors equal. So if you're doing medical astrology, you'd want to note that Venus is always a planet to look out for. If you're doing trying to predict their longevity, Venus is a planet to keep a little more of an eye on, simply because it rules that 22nd Drekkana. Okay, then we can do this Dasha rule. So the 22nd Drekkana Lord is not that interesting from their Lagna. Study any house. When the lords of the 8th and the 22nd Drekkana are weak, and in the 6th, 7th, and 8th houses, they cause the destruction of the house during their dashas. Well, let's just try this. Saturn. Saturn is a dasha they have been in, and just finishing up here this year. Okay, so what we can do, will Saturn have that possibility of destroying some house? We have to see if Saturn rules the 8th or the 22nd Drekkana from any house. Okay, so only Earth and air signs can have Saturn ruling the 22nd Drekkana, right? So let's just, the easy way to find out if Saturn is that possibility is just see if Saturn's in the 6th, 7th, or 8th from something. Because Saturn's certainly weak, right? Saturn's in a natural enemy sign. It's in a great enemy's dignity. Saturn's aspected by enemy Sun, enemy Moon, enemy Mars, helped by Mercury and Venus, but hurt much more by the other planets and in a bad dignity to start with. So Saturn's weak. So if Saturn's in the 6th, 7th, or 8th from a house, and if it rules the 22nd Drekkana from that house, or the 8th Lord, or if it's the 8th Lord from that house, it can destroy the house in that Saturn Dasha. Let's see, from the 3rd Bhava, Saturn's in the 8th. But the Saturn doesn't rule the 8th house, but does it maybe rule the 22nd Drekkana? Well, let's find out here. We need to pull up our Bhava Chalita. Clicking on that, we can see all the Bhavakas. The 3rd Bhavakas is 7 Sag. So the first Drekkana of Sag rises. So the 22nd Drekkana Lord is going to be the first Drekkana of Cancer, which is Cancer ruled by the Moon. So Saturn doesn't rule that. Okay? Then Saturn rules the 4th house as well. And the 4th Drekkana, 4th cusp falls at 6 Capricorn, the first Drekkana of Capricorn. So the 22nd Drekkana Lord is going to be the first Drekkana of Leo, which is ruled by the Sun. So Saturn's not that Lord either. Then from Aquarius, the 8th Bhava is ruled by Mercury. It's not Saturn. The 8th Bhava is Drekkana. Well, let's see. The 5th Drekkana, 5th Bhava falls at 5 Aquarius, which means the Drekkana is in the first Drekkana of Aquarius, which means the first of Virgo. So Mercury rules that. So even though Saturn's in a position to destroy one of these houses, he is not, because he's in the 7th from this house, 6th from this house, he's not ruling the 22nd Drekkana Lord or the 8th Bhava from any of those houses, so he's not going to destroy them. Okay, which is good, because we don't want that. But had he, we would do that. So that's how we can check if a planet's forming that possible destructive thing. Okay? All these Bhavas don't have a planet in the 6th, 7th, or 8th. Okay, this one does. But this planet, it has one in the 6th. We've already done that. Moon doesn't. None of these other Bhavas have a planet in the 6th, 7th, or 8th. Saturn, from Cancer, Mars is in the 8th. Mars is in an enemy's dignity, a natural neutral sign. Mars is aspected by 2 neutrals, Venus and Saturn. So Mars is a little on the weak side here. He's also in the last part of a sign, which puts him in Mrityu, or death of Vashta, the last few degrees of an odd Rashi. So Mars can possibly cause destruction of this house, or this house if he rules the 22nd Drekkana. Okay? Now, the 22nd Drekkana from the 10th bhava is the first Drekkana of Aquarius ruled by Saturn. So Mars is not that planet. The 22nd Drekkana of Leo is of the 11th bhava, which falls in the beginning of Leo, is ruled by Jupiter. So it's not going to happen. Then the 12th Drekkana of, the 22nd Drekkana of the 12th house falls at 5 Virgo, is the first Drekkana of Aries, which is Aries ruled by Mars. So from the 12th bhava, Mars rules the 22nd Drekkana. Mars is in the 6th, and it's weak. It also rules the 8th house from the 12th house, and it's in the 6th, and it's there. So in Mars, the dasha of the 22nd Drekkana Lord and the antardasha of the 8th bhava Lord, or vice versa, but in that dasha, in Mars, it'll destroy the 12th bhava. Now, when are they going to get Mars? Not until, like, they're really, really old, luckily. Okay? They won't, unfortunately, even be alive, or good thing, they won't be alive during that time. But let's say they ran Mars when they were 8 years old or something. Okay? If they ran Mars when they were 8 years old, then 12th house, which has to do with some of our ancestors, could have died. Grandparents and so on could have passed. Great-grandparents could have passed. It would also destroy 12th house things, which are good expenses, and would cause a lot of debt in that period. So this person did happen to live to Mars dasha past the age of, past 2071 when Mars dasha starts. Then in that period, financially, things would really fall apart for them. And it wouldn't be a good picture. There'd probably be health complications that led to financial disasters. But at that time, they're going to be probably have passed by then, because this person doesn't have that type of extreme longevity. So that's how you use that technique. It doesn't apply in this person's chart. Okay? Doesn't look like. Okay? So we'll have some charts where it does apply, but I just wanted to show you in this chart how to actually look for that. Okay? The last thing we haven't done is looking at the effects of the planet will be felt in the beginning, middle, or concluding portion of its Mahadasha in accordance with its position in the first, second, or third Drekkana. Okay. Saturn Dasha was in the middle Drekkana, second Drekkana of Cancer. So a lot of Saturn's influences are going to happen in the middle of Saturn Dasha. Saturn, Mercury, Saturn, Ketu are the beginning of Saturn Dasha. Saturn, Venus, Saturn, Sun, Saturn, Moon are at the second part of its Dasha. Saturn, Mars, Saturn, Rahu, Saturn, Jupiter are the third. So this lets us know that a lot of Saturn things are going to happen between Saturn, Venus, Saturn, Sun, and Saturn, Moon. A lot of the emphasis, the emphasize things in Saturn Dasha. In the Navamsha, you might remember we've looked at this chart previously. Saturn's exalted. Okay? He rules he's exalted, which is important. He's sort of the best Lord in the Navamsha. Okay, he's the best planet in the Navamsha because he is exalted. He rules the 12th bhava cusp. Okay, so he's not directly related to marriage per se, but an exalted planet in Navarga can always contribute towards those things in its dasha. Saturn also rules the 4th bhava cusp in the Rashi, and he's in the 10th. And like I've mentioned, in a woman's chart, planets ruling the 4th or 10th or in the 4th or 10th are inclined towards marriage as a career for that woman. Okay, so basically housewife type person who just wants to get married and not have to worry about paying bills. or who just would rather take care of a house. Okay, and that's what happened in this person. The middle part of Saturn Dasha, they got married and became a career wife. Okay, and we can see that because Saturn is just so strong in the Navamsha. Rules the 12th house, though, the house of escape and vacations. Part of their desire for doing that, because they just wanted to get away from life. They didn't want to deal with all the troubles of work and da-da-da-da-da. They just wanted a beautiful place to live and to relax and do the whimsical things that they sort of wanted to do. And so they found that long-term vacation in the middle of their Saturn Dasha. Okay? Like I mentioned about this person, because Venus and Mars are in Durvasa Drekkanas, and they are the relationship planets, that first relationship that really ended and broke her heart, after that she was never able to completely love again in the same way. The marriage she made was based on more, just a simple level of friendship based with a lot of security concerns. So they married someone who, had a great job, who lived in one of the finest neighborhoods, who owned a very expensive house. They moved up the material food chain through their marriage. It was a lot of the factors was just her material security that she wanted to, work out, and friendship. It wasn't the same type of love as the person they had that first relationship with, where the guy just disappeared on her and sort of, tore her heart to shreds through that Durvasa Nakshatra. So it wasn't a Venetian type love. You see how Venus is sleeping. It was more Saturnian, real practical thinking, worldly living type marriage that Saturn gave. Okay? But it did it in the middle of the Saturn Dasha. Okay? So, just a kind of a simple rule to help you narrow it down. If you decided Saturn Dasha was going to give marriage, and you look, you go, well, Saturn Dasha doesn't give marriage. Saturn Mercury could do it, couldn't it? I mean, Mercury rules the 10th bhava in the Navamsha. Could give a housewife marriage, maybe. It rules the, it's a friend of Saturn. It's a good planet there. It's in the, it's in a friend sign. It also rules the Mars, the Lagna Lord of the Navamsha. You'd think Mercury has some chance of activating the Navamsha, but it didn't. Okay, not in any respect whatsoever did it really activate the Navamsha. Okay, that happened in later that they got married. Okay, in Saturn Venus, not Saturn Mercury. And why Saturn Venus? You're going, well, Venus is in bad dignity. He's sleeping here. Okay, yeah, he's sleeping, but Saturn, he rules Saturn, and Saturn Venus always activates the full quality of Saturn. So Saturn's really, really strong to do something. Venus, though hurting himself, will often do it to help Saturn. Okay, and here we have that case. Saturn is super strong to do something because he's exalted. Venus is not. Venus is actually contrary to marriage. But Venus is always willing in its Antardasha to help Saturn, give Saturn whatever Saturn's trying to do. So Saturn's trying to have a vacation marriage that they don't have to worry about material living. Venus, which is the planet of love and romance, is sleeping. So Venus gives up his needs, which are sleeping, which are easy to give up, and help Saturn fulfill his in Saturn-Venus Dasha. That's why some old texts say Saturn-Venus gives the full effects of Saturn. Okay, so lots of times you'll see surprising things happen in Saturn-Venus if Saturn's in great shape. On the other hand, if Saturn's in bad or mediocre shape, surprisingly bad things will happen in Saturn-Venus, where Venus, even if Venus is showing some really nice stuff, he's going to ultimately let go of that and give a lot of it to Saturn instead. Okay? And what that is on Earth, which is a tough, difficult place, it's just so easy to give up what will give us emotional fulfillment for physical security. And in Saturn Venus, we're in Saturn Dasha, which is such a such a dasha that wants physical security, that in that dasha, Venus is very easily gives up his needs for emotional fulfillment to help Saturn fulfill the needs for physical security. And that's what happened in this person's chart. Okay. Now, Venus won't do that all the time. It only does it in Saturn dasha and Saturn Venus. Otherwise, it won't do it. It doesn't do it in Venus Saturn period. Okay. In fact, in Venus Saturn period, at that point, the Mahadasha is about emotional fulfillment. And so in Venus Saturn, a person will actually give up a lot of material security in order to have a greater emotional security or emotional fulfillment. So in Venus Saturn period, you'll oftentimes see people have a financially secure relationship that they'll walk out of because they are willing to give up material security, or they'll quit a job for a relationship, but they'll do something that they'll give up some part of their material security sometimes if Saturn's in bad shape to help fulfill their emotional security or fulfillment if Venus is in good shape. Okay? Anyway, we'll talk about that more at some point. But those are tricky dashas to interpret, Saturn, Venus, and Venus, Saturn. Which way they're going to go, look towards the Mahadasha Lord and see if he's great. If he's great, Saturn, Venus will be good. If he's not, it'll be troublesome. Okay, more Drekkana examples to come soon.